"You're not invited to Christmas this year," my mom announced in my own living room. I just shouted back, "Fine, I'm taking myself off the mortgage." They started laughing right up until the eviction notice showed up. My name's Edward, and I'm 34. Yeah, I was the one who pulled my name off the mortgage after my own mother told me I was basically uninvited to Christmas. But this didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It had been brewing for years, like a slow leak that finally burst and completely wrecked everything I thought was solid. I was always the good son, not the golden child, not even close, but the one they could always count on. They called on me when the car broke down. I was there for tax stuff. My younger brother, Jacob, he could get away with anything. He was the clear favorite. If I was late getting home from school, I'd be in trouble. If he showed up at 3 a.m. reeking of booze, it was just boys being boys. I figured out pretty quickly that I was more of a utility than a person they actually cared about. After college, I landed a good IT job and started saving like crazy. Seriously, I didn't go out, didn't travel, didn't even upgrade my beat-up car. My goal was to own a house before I turned 30, and I did. Well, kinda. That's when things really got going, I guess. When I was 28, my mom called me while I was on my lunch break with a proposition. I knew the drill already. She always called it a proposal whenever she wanted something, but she tried to make it sound like it was good for me too. This time, the offer was that she, my stepdad Henry, and Jacob had found this amazing house, but they couldn't swing it without my help. It's big enough for everyone. She gushed like we were some kind of perfect family from a TV show. "We can grow closer here. You'll finally have a place to work from home." She also threw in that I wouldn't have to pay rent anymore. I'm not gonna lie, the place was gorgeous. 2 stories, a huge yard, and even a little sunroom where I pictured myself surrounded by books and plants. But of course, I'd be footing most of the bill. They said it was a great investment for me. They'd handle the utilities and groceries, and I'd just be on the hook for the mortgage. "Jacob's gonna get a job soon and start helping," Mom added. Henry had some job stuff going on, but it was being taken care of. Everything felt off, but I was also just so done with paying rent. Truthfully, I wanted to believe that we could actually be a family, finally. So I said yes. I put my name on the mortgage, paid the down payment out of my own pocket, and moved in with them. And for a little while, things seemed okay. We ate dinner together. Jacob was on his best behavior. Mom even seemed proud of me. I guess that gave me hope. I had no clue I was chasing a fantasy. It hit me about 6 months in something was seriously wrong. Jacob still didn't have a job. He said he was looking, but the truth was he was up all night gaming, blaming everything but himself. Henry left early every day, spouting about job interviews, but the money never showed up. Bills piled up. We had less and less to eat. When I mentioned it to my mom, she'd just cock her head and say, "Well, Edward, you've got a good job. You can handle it, right?" I tried to stay calm, telling myself they'd find work any day. But it went on and on. I felt more like an ATM with a room attached than the actual homeowner, and to make things worse, they acted like they owned the place. Jacob was always throwing parties. Henry changed the locks without even asking. My mom rearranged my office while I was away on a trip, turning it into her little reading corner. I almost flipped when I saw her going through my mail looking for who knows what. But I kept my mouth shut. I started seeing a therapist, and she told me to set some boundaries, so I did. I typed up a budget showing exactly what I paid for and what they weren't contributing. I asked them to start chipping in not a fortune, just a few $100 a month. They acted like I'd asked them to empty their bank accounts. "We're your family," Mom said, like that was some kind of free pass. "I know," I said. Honestly, that's the whole reason I let things go on for so long. Jacob just rolled his eyes and mumbled something about me being too concerned about money. Henry didn't even bother to get involved. After that, everything shifted. It got really uncomfortable, frosty, and filled with this quiet, heavy vibe. Jacob clammed up unless the internet wasn't working. Mom kept cooking, but there wasn't enough food for me anymore. When I left, they'd start whispering amongst themselves, and when I came back, the house just felt different. Things were rearranged, stuff moved around. Suddenly, there were chores being assigned, and new rules like no shoes in the living room seemed to only apply to me. The real kick in the teeth came in November. I'd been totally swamped with work, and I was actually looking forward to the holidays. My job was totally draining, and all I really wanted for Christmas was a little peace. I'd even bought a tree, some basic lights, and a wreath for the front door. I set everything up Saturday morning while they were out. That night they came home and gave the living room this look like I'd done something wrong. "Why didn't you ask us first?" Mom asked, crossing her arms and staring at the tree like it was a personal affront. I was confused. "I thought we were celebrating together," I explained. "We're not doing Christmas this year," Jacob said. "It's a waste of money." "We made that decision," Mom said. Nobody said anything to me, I shot back, so she says, maybe if you were around more, you'd know what's up. A big, empty hole opened up in my chest. I just stood there, staring at the pretty lights behind her. The way she talked, it felt like I'd crashed their party, you know. Like I was some unwelcome guest, but I kept my mouth shut. I took down all the decorations, the whole wreath, and told myself it wasn't a big deal. I even fooled myself into thinking maybe next year would be different. Then this week happened. I got home from a business trip, and bam, the living room was all decked out, lights everywhere, stockings hung by the fireplace, Christmas music blasting. They were putting up the tree, laughing and having a good time. I paused in the doorway for a second, thinking maybe it was some kind of surprise. But then I heard my mom say, "It's so peaceful without Edward here to mess things up." I just froze. I didn't even know what to say. When I finally went in, the laughter died. "Oh," my mom said, all flat and emotionless. "You're back sooner than we expected." "I guess I missed the memo about not doing Christmas this year," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't even blink. She looked me right in the eye and said, "We're not including you in Christmas this year." Just like that. I didn't know what she wanted me to do. Scream, cry, beg to be part of it. I didn't do any of it. I just nodded, went into the kitchen, got my laptop, and checked my mortgage account. They were busy putting the ornaments on the Christmas tree, which I wasn't allowed to even get near. Meanwhile, I was going through with removing my name from the loan. When the computer asked if I was absolutely sure, I hit the yes button without a second thought. But believe me, that was far from the end of things. When they finally figured out what I'd done and what it meant, all the fake smiles disappeared real fast. That's when everything just went completely off the rails. 3 days later, I was having lunch at my desk and my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First, there was a text from my mom. "Edward, what did you do with the mortgage?" Then another one in all caps. "Stop being ridiculous, this isn't funny." I didn't reply right away. I just stared at the screen. The words were kind of blurry, like my brain was foggy. I figured they'd catch on eventually, but not this soon. Honestly, I didn't think they'd care so much. Turns out I was wrong. My mom tried calling too. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, and I ignored that too, and finally she left a message. I didn't know what to anticipate. Maybe an apology? Nope. "Edward, this is cruel. The house is supposed to be for all of us. You can't use this to hurt us. I didn't raise you to be this way." "Call me back." That last line, "I didn't raise you to be this way," it made me crack up. The irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. When I got home that night, the house was eerily quiet, almost too still. Jacob was usually screaming at his video game while Henry pretended to fix something, but this time, dead silent. All you could hear was the fridge humming and smell that burnt food, another one of Henry's cooking experiments gone wrong, probably. I walked in like I always did, dropped my keys, and kicked off my shoes. I wasn't expecting a 3-on-1 ambush in the living room, but there they were. Mom, Henry, and Jacob all lined up on the couch like they were judging me. "You gotta fix this," Mom mumbled, avoiding my eyes. "Hey, Mom." "Good to be home," I said, dropping my laptop bag by the stairs. "Don't play dumb," Jacob yelled. "You messed with the house papers. That's illegal." I raised an eyebrow. "Illegal? You mean changing the ownership of the place I paid for? It's not just yours," Mom snapped. "We've lived here. We made it our home." "You've been living here rent-free," I shot back. "That's different," Henry finally said, real quiet. "You're doing the wrong thing, kid." Before I could stop myself, I blurted out, "I'm not your kid." The room went completely silent. That hit hard. Henry looked away, and Mom's face had changed. Not sad or angry, just empty. Like she'd been wearing a mask so long she'd forgotten it was fake. "We gave you," she started, her voice barely a whisper, and something inside me just cracked open. "So you want to know about the time you tricked me into footing the bill for your house, making me the family punching bag? Or how about the party you threw and I wasn't even on the guest list, even though I live here? What memory are we even talking about?" "Ugh, stop being so dramatic," she muttered, like always, like those words could magically erase everything. I went into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and got some cold water. My hands were trembling a little, but not from being scared. It was a different kind of energy, sharp, focused, and ready. Something inside me had shifted, and there was no going back. "You know," I mumbled, leaning on the counter, "I used to think it was me, that if I just tried harder, paid more, and stayed quiet, I would finally fit in." "Edward," Mom started, her voice sickeningly sweet, but I cut her off. "But now I get it," I said. "You don't want a son, you just want someone to pay the bills and never ask questions." "That's not who I am anymore." I took a drink, looking at them. Jacob's face was red and his leg was bouncing like a scared rabbit. Henry looked totally empty, like he'd given up years ago. And Mom, she looked like she wanted to say something nasty but couldn't get the words out. So I finished the sentence for her. "I already talked to a lawyer," I said. "Technically, you're just living here. Since there's no lease, you have 30 days to get out." Not a peep, just silence. "You're really kicking out your own mother?" she asked, her voice cracking a little. "Seriously, after everything I did for you, you just stopped being a parent the second you decided I was your personal ATM." The room was dead silent, like the air was thick with something. Even the couch seemed to be holding its breath. Suddenly, Jacob jumped up, banging his knee hard on the table. "This is crazy, you can't do this," he yelled. "I can," I said, cool as a cucumber, "and I am." I turned and started heading upstairs, planning to lock my door and let them figure it out. But when I was at the top of the stairs, I heard her voice again. "You think you're the good guy," she cried, "but we won't forget this. Family holds on to things." I hesitated for a moment, turning back enough so she could hear me but not see. "Good," I said. "I hope you remember every single detail." I closed my door and sat down at my desk, taking a deep breath. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was tense, like the air before a storm, because I knew this wasn't over. They were going to fight even harder next time. The next day started with a really awkward silence. It was a weird feeling, not at all calming, more like the uneasy quiet after a huge fight. Everything felt louder, even the little noises. I could hear someone moving around downstairs, the clinking of plates sounding just a little too loud, as if they were trying to be subtly angry over breakfast. I didn't go downstairs. I wasn't up for another round, and I knew they weren't either. Not yet. But the silence was just the calm before the storm. By that evening, the real fight had begun. Mom started this whole mess by slipping a note under my bedroom door. An actual handwritten letter in her perfect cursive, no less. 3 whole pages on her fancy stationery, the kind she usually saves for birthdays. It started with, "I'm speaking as a mother who deeply cares about her son, not someone trying to control him." Yeah, right. The whole thing was one giant guilt trip. She went on and on about everything she'd sacrificed for me, working 2 jobs after Dad left, how she never complained. Except, she totally did. She even brought up how I used to cry when I scraped my knee as a kid and how she'd always be there to comfort me. Then came the real emotional manipulation. She talked about how much it hurt her to see the family falling apart, how my actions were tearing us all to pieces, how money had changed me, made me cold and distant. The letter ended with, "I just want my son back. Please don't do this." I finished reading it with this knot in my chest. Not because I bought any of it, but because some part of me still wished I could. That was always her thing. She didn't raise me with kindness. It was always pressure, 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 and that kind of stuff sticks with you. I didn't answer her. The next morning, things got even worse. Henry saw me leaving my room and planted himself in the hallway like some wannabe rent-a-cop. He said, all puffed up with his arms crossed, "This house doesn't just belong to you. We've put a lot of work into this place." I just stared at him. "You changed a light bulb last month." I really didn't like that. My jaw clenched tight. This wasn't how families were supposed to behave. "No," I said as I walked right past him, "but that's exactly how a landlord treats someone who doesn't pay." Later that day, I noticed the thermostat had been locked. My mom suddenly announced the upstairs bathroom was off limits. Laundry schedules got messed up on a whim and I wasn't even told. So childish, so immature, but it didn't stop there. That evening, I found Jacob in my office using my computer. He was sitting in my chair, looking through my open tabs like it was no big deal. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice getting lower. He looked up slowly, as if I was bothering him. "Relax," he said. "I'm just looking at something. You always act like everything's yours." "It is mine," I said, standing my ground. "Yeah," he responded, his voice getting quieter. "Maybe you should stop acting like you're better than everyone. You're not better than us, Edward." I didn't say anything back. Then he added, "One day you're going to be the one begging for help, and when that day comes, I hope we remind you of this." It was almost funny that I'd need them for anything. I wanted to laugh, but instead I just closed the door and locked it. That night, I started putting a chair under my door when I went to bed. I wish I could say it was just because I was on edge, but the next morning I saw scratch marks on the door frame by the lock, like someone had tried to force it open. That's when I stopped trying to be nice. I started documenting everything. Snapping photos, saving texts, the whole 9 yards. I even put a security camera in the hallway, pointed right at my door. I printed out the state's tenant laws and highlighted every single thing that let me legally kick them out. I wasn't just planning on getting them out, though. I was planning my own escape. Even if they left, the house would still be filled with bad memories. All those fights and tension, I just couldn't shake it. 2 days later, things came to a head. I came home from work, walked into the kitchen, and just stopped dead. They'd been in my fridge. My stuff, my leftovers, my yogurt, the Thai food I made, all of it spilled and dumped in the trash. The shelf was completely bare. There was a note stuck to the fridge door, just one word, community. No signature, no explanation, nothing. I'm surprised I didn't scream. I didn't even yell. I just went upstairs, opened my laptop, typed up a formal eviction notice, printed it out, and slid it under their door. They were in the living room watching some dumb TV show. About 5 minutes later, I heard Jacob yell, "What the heck is this?" I didn't say a word that night, but I knew they'd come knocking sooner or later. And they didn't come alone. That's when the next chapter of this whole mess started. This time, they brought their whole family. The night I gave them that eviction notice, I knew I wasn't going to get any peace. They weren't going to go down without a fight. That wasn't their usual way of doing things, not at all. I was floored by how much work they put into twisting the whole thing around. It started with Aunt Linda. She rang me the next morning, all fake sweetness and light, like she'd already picked her side but was pretending otherwise. "Edward, honey," she said, "I heard there's been some trouble at home." "Your mom's really hurting," she went on. "I heard you're kicking them out." I let out a big breath. "Linda," I said, "they've lived rent-free in my house for almost 4 years. They haven't lifted a finger to help. I'm just asking them to finally contribute something." She paused, then hit me with it. "I just don't think that's very Christian of you, especially around the holidays." Bingo, the guilt trip. Classic family move, make me look like the bad guy while totally rewriting reality. For the next few days, I got texts from 3 cousins I hadn't talked to in ages. A couple were pretending to just be checking in. One sent a Bible verse with a real sarcastic edge. Even my grandma, who hadn't been all there for the last 2 Thanksgivings, somehow managed to leave a voicemail saying, "Edward, don't hurt your poor mom like this." You'd think I'd be furious. Instead, I felt this incredible clarity, like a fog had lifted. It all clicked into place. This was their game, their whole system, a manipulative emotional con with my mom pulling the strings and feeding everyone her version of the story. And I was done playing. I just stopped texting back, went to work, came home, wrote everything down, and waited. Those 30 days crawled by, and the house felt emptier and colder each week. Mom even forgot to turn the heat on, just stopped doing it out of nowhere. Jacob was banging on doors. Henry just moped around. The whole place was thick with this unspoken tension, you know. I stayed out of it, kept to myself, slept with my door locked, cooked my own food, just waited. 3 days before the deadline, I put together a Facebook post. I kept it calm, straight to the point, and totally honest. No yelling, no calling anyone names. It went something like, "Hey everyone, let me clear this up. Years ago, I agreed to live with my mom, stepdad, and brother. I put down the whole down payment on the house and have paid for 95% of everything since. But even though I tried again and again to get them to share the responsibility, they just manipulated me and quietly harassed me. After they kept me out of family stuff in my house and kept pushing my boundaries, I legally gave them notice to leave. It wasn't about revenge or anything. I just needed some peace. I don't wish them any ill will, but I'm not going to lose my mind protecting their idea of family anymore." Then I logged off. That post did more than just stop the guilt trips, it completely shut them down. A few people tried to stir things up, but most backed off once I showed them the proof. Pictures, emails, and snapshots of everything that fell apart, that's all it took. I didn't trash talk anyone, didn't spill all the secrets. I didn't have to. The truth was bad enough on its own. When it was time for them to go, I didn't smile, didn't rub it in, didn't say a word. A buddy showed up with his truck, and I used it to move their stuff, what little was actually worth keeping, out to the front. I packed it all up myself, labeled everything, and kept my cool. Jacob came outside, yelling something about me screwing the family over, but I just ignored him. Henry didn't say anything, just kept staring at the ground. Mom looked at me, not angry, not sad. She just looked shocked, like she thought I'd chicken out at the end. But I didn't. They drove off in the afternoon. No goodbyes, no hugs, no nothing. As they pulled away, all I could hear was the gravel crunching under their tires. Once their car was gone, I shut the door, locked it, and just stood there. The quiet in the house was unlike anything I'd ever known. No more stomping around upstairs. No video games shaking the walls, no more emotional manipulation. No guilt, just me. And for the first time in ages, I felt something real, a kind of peaceful stillness that felt amazing. In the weeks after that, I scrubbed the place down, painted the walls, changed the locks, turned my office into a proper workspace, and turned the spare room into a music room, just like I always wanted. I even put the Christmas decorations back up, just 'cause I felt like it. I had some friends over for the first time in ages. We played games, watched dumb movies outside on the projector, and just laughed like crazy, way more than I had in years and years before. I finally started sleeping well too, like actually sleeping, way better than I had in a long, long time. I still get texts from my family, saying I should fix things, but I just ignore them. I'm not mad, I'm not even bothered, I'm just done. Cause the real revenge isn't about getting all fired up. It's about picking a better life for yourself. You gotta draw a line, choose peace instead of trying to pretend that's how you win. So she told me, we're not doing Christmas with you this year. I just quietly said, okay, that's cool. And now I spend the holiday my own way with real happiness, awesome music, and actual love. There wasn't any fake smiles or any nasty looks.